Welcome this morning. This is Rabbi RABBIOTERO with the ways of Israel, and also got to have my coffee. So Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihya b'dvaro. We are continuing the study with the book of Sefer Ikkarim. We're now in chapter 22 of the first book of Rabbi Joseph Albo, who lays down the fundamentals of Judaism in this work called Sefer Ikkarim. Now keep in mind, a lot of his material is being approached from a philosophical and also with a purpose to respond to what he was encountering during his period of time, which was a very fierce force from Christianity attacking and trying to force Jews to convert to Judaism. And thus they utilize our sources, our statements, our scriptures, in order to try to prove to the Jews that Jesus is the one whom Christianity says he is. This is not a new tactic. Even in today's world, we see that being played out, that many come in disguised or perhaps sincerely believing in the Jewish Jesus and trying to do everything they can to try to convince and convert the Jew that is not beholding to that ideology or that concept. And so this tick-tock back and forth is seen throughout history as a true struggle like Yaakov had with the angel that he was fighting. And finally, Yaakov wins. I could say Yaakov Emet wins the debate at the end times. And so we go here and we're looking at exactly the arguments which Rabbi Alba puts forward. And of course, we're doing this in merit of a good friend of mine who passed away last year, unfortunately, who was a descendant of the Alba family, originally from Cuba. And believe it or not, a lot of these Bedins that are involved in trying to convert people will have a problem with apparently a lot of the Cubans who are now coming, who still hold to their understanding that they have descendants of Jewry. George was just one of them, but there are many on the islands who still hold to that idea, even though many may have assimilated and been completely involved in other religions. The fact is that they still have a very strong hold and connection to their Judaism and their claims of Jewish past, primarily matrilineal, but also patrilineal. And of course, we know that according to Orthodox Judaism, it doesn't count if it's patrilineally only. It has to be matrilineally. So let's go forward and jump right into the class. We don't have that much time, but I definitely wanted to cover it before Shabbat and before I have to leave. All belief does not lead to happiness, says Rabbi Alba. Thus, belief in the impossible does not necessarily produce happiness. No one doubts that belief which makes a man happy must be a belief in the truth, not belief that a non-existing thing exists or that existing things does not exist. The question therefore arises, how can we tell whether a thing is true and demands implicit belief or is not true and should not be believed? If we say that the question must be determined by reason, it would follow that the ratiocination stands higher than faith, which contradicts what was laid down before. This is a difficult matter which we must endeavor to solve. There are two kinds of impossibility. There is the essential impossible, which we cannot conceive that even God can make possible. For example, the whole is greater than the part, and the diagonal of a square is greater than the side. Now we cannot conceive that God can make part equal to the whole, or diagonal of a square to the side, or the angles of a triangle equal to more than two right angles, or two contradictory propositions to be true at the same time about the same object, or the affirmative and the negative to apply at the same time to the same thing in the same relation. Some impossibilities can never be accredited by tradition, nor can our sense ever testify to their reality or the reality of anything similar, because the mind cannot conceive the existence of any such thing. Such a thing, therefore, should not be believed, and thus it can never be accredited by tradition that God can create another being like him in all aspects. And this is a reference to J.C., obviously. For one would necessarily be the cause of the other, the effect, and they would no longer be similar in all aspects. There is another class of impossibility which is inconceivable, or which is conceivable, that God may make possible, namely that which we merely impossible according to the laws of nature. Such things are not impossible for God, even though they are impossible according to the laws of nature. For example, the resurrection of the dead, a human being who can live 40 days and 40 nights without food and drink, and other wonderful things of the same kind, which are impossible by the laws of nature. We may have the second possibility, may believe that since the mind can conceive of its existence, we may lay down as a possible rule, therefore, that anything which the mind can conceive, though it is impossible by the law of nature, may be believed to have existed in the past, and to be existing now, or to come exist in the future. This is particularly true if experience testifies to the existence of a thing. Though the mind denies its existence because it does not know the cause, such a thing may be believed. For example, the property of a magnet by which it attracts iron. The mind cannot explain the cause and is inclined to deny the reality of the phenomenon. But since experience testifies to it, it is something that the mind cannot conceive, though it cannot explain the cause, and it's true doubt. Similarly, those to which the senses testify, like the miracles of the Bible, such as the revival of the dead by Elisha during the life and after death, remaining 40 days and 40 nights without food and drink, as Moses and Elijah did, the descent of fire from heaven, the presence of the Shekinah in Israel, that's the divine presence in Israel, and other miracles which were observed in the past, and which the mind cannot conceive, though it cannot explain them. All such things may be believed as possible to the omnipotent being whom we call God. Now, here we end chapter 22 of Sefer Ikkarim, and in chapter 23, which will be our next video, there are 6 dogmas of which everyone professing the law of Moses is obliged to believe. And they are all connected with the 3 fundamental principles that Albo has laid down, but they are not derivative principles. And we're going to see that in our next video. So stay tuned, share this video, and please be part of the Ways of Israel. If you really like what you're seeing, if you really enjoy these classes, give a contribution, no matter what level, what amount. It is needed, and I mean that for sure. We are growing, and in all growth we need to be able to expand and be able to underwrite a lot of things, like talits, like tefillins, like Torah scrolls, and much, much more that many of our communities are in need of. If you have an extra spare, feel free to contact me, call me, but please participate and be part of the Ways of Israel. This is Rabbi Moshe Tero. I wish you and yours a Shabbat Shalom Mevorach. Shalom.